Hello, good crowd. We are so fortunate today. We have with us Igor Belagorudsky, and he is the president of Fast CTO, a proven entrepreneur. He's got some really meaningful, exciting innovations and tips for crowdfunders. So stick around. You don't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Our sponsor, Johnson & Johnson, matches most individual donations up to $250 at caringcrowd.org. Igor, welcome to the show.
Hey. Hi, Devin. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining me. It's exciting to have you. I'm really interested to learn more about your startup score. But maybe before we go there, take 30 seconds to tell people what Fast CTO is, and then let's talk about this startup score you've created.
Yeah, so Fast CTO is a new type of company that's a little bit complicated to explain. But suffice it to say that my last successful startup was in the staffing industry. And to redeem my soul after that, I decided to do something as far away from staffing as I could. So I thought, how does staffing make money? It makes money off of the margin between the bill rate and the pay rate. What if we got rid of that margin? And what if we took really experienced, really expensive folks and made them work with startups, but without trying to make a profit? So in a shell, what Fast CTO is super experienced CTOs working with typically early stage startups in a way that Fast CTO, the company, doesn't make money.
Oh, that is interesting. We may have to have you back to talk about that. But
Sure.
let's talk first about the startup score. What is that?
Yeah, so after my last exit, I spent some time doing angel investments, and I spent some time in the startup community, as I have been throughout my career. And what I've noticed is that as an angel investor, I'm with a group here in Boston. We don't make an investment without a due diligence. On the Fast CTO side, we run sophisticated due diligences all day long for venture capital firms, private equity firms, and these are super sophisticated documents that take a lot of time. On the other side of the world, you have crowdfunding, which is amazing, and it kind of equalizes the playing field, and I really love anything that kind of democratizes whatever it is for for the regular person. And so whereas it was the Wild West a few years ago, then the SEC passed Reg CF. And so with Reg CF, you've got a lot of regulations, and that made a lot of investors with a lot of money feel a little bit more comfortable looking at the space. So now it's been a couple of years, but what you see in the crowdfunding world is that the average investment size is still around $88. And that your big investors, like your angel investors, your VC funds that are looking at the space, they want to diversify their portfolio, but they're very hesitant to jump in because they're not seeing any of the resources they're used to when looking at investment opportunities. So the idea behind the Fast CTO score is if you've got really sophisticated due diligences on one side, you're like big rounds, multi-million-dollar, 60-page documents. On the other side, you've got your angel rounds that are about 10, 15 pages, something like that. What if we took an angel round approach and made an angel-sized due diligence for companies that are going the crowdfunding route? Now, if you are a sophisticated investor and you're looking at a listing on crowdfunding, you're able to actually see what you're used to and actually make an educated decision. And if you're a novice investor, like the kind of investor that's investing, $88 per investment, the hope is that we could educate you a little bit, make you into a better investor, make you understand what to actually look for when investing in a company.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating. And has anyone have any platforms or issuers started using the startup score yet?
Yeah, so we're talking with a number of exchanges. So these days there are just under 50 exchanges in the U.S. You've got your household names like your Kickstarters or your Indiegogos. We Funder just passed 100 million in investment. So this is a serious thing. This is a space that's exploding. Right now, well, the end goal, let me talk about the end goal. The end goal is that if you're a company that's looking to go crowdfunding, just like when you book a flight, let's say on one of the airfare sites, right? And you're going to Paris, right? It asks you, oh, do you want to rent a car as well? So the same way, if you're listing on one of these exchanges, we want to educate people about the opportunity of the Fast CTO score and have them be able to say, yeah, I'm a technical company. This seems like a good idea. Let's include a Fast CTO score and report as part of my listing. Right now, there's a lot of exchanges that really love what we're doing. Everybody that we've talked to, from exchanges to big time investors to founders of companies that have gone the traditional route of like convertible notes, VCs, et cetera, and have gone the crowdfunding route, everybody's on board with this being a complete game changer, right? But these exchanges are at this point pretty big deals, right? Like $100 million. So they're a little bit slow to change, and the Fast CTO score is a little bit new. So right now, as we're working with various exchanges to bring it in as part of their workflow, we're kind of also going around and contacting these startups and actually letting them know that this opportunity exists.
Excellent. Well, Igor, you offered preliminarily 3 tips for us, and I want to talk through your 3 tips. What's your first tip?
So the first tip is, so these tips are kind of understand what you're getting into when you're going crowdfunding, but also prepare yourself for what's about to come, right? Because what's about to come with Fast CTO and even outside of it is, as this space stabilizes and as it makes big time investors more confident in investing, you're gonna start seeing bigger investments. You're already seeing companies that are raising large amounts, right? At first it was a small amount, $50,000, $100,000. Now you're seeing some companies going a crowdfunding round for their Series A, Series B, right? Multi-million-dollar deals, right? So it's hard to close $2 million in funding with $88 checks, right? And so the first tip is make sure that you're listing, whether it has the Fast CTO score or not, whether you're a technical company or not, is attractive not just to the types of people that are doing $88 rounds, but also to the people that are potentially able to write a $10,000 check, a $20,000 check, right? Because at the end of the day, crowdfunding takes a lot of time. I've talked to a lot of founders and they say, look, all day long, I am fielding questions from this person that, you know, is taking up 2 hours of my time to decide whether or not they want to invest $50, right? Wouldn't you rather spend 2 hours of your time with someone deciding to invest $10,000, right? So if you can make your listing attractive to those types of people, as well as the types of people that are doing $88, I think you'll be in good shape to close your round faster and it take a lot less time.
Excellent. So what's your second tip?
Right. So, you know, the second tip is interesting. You need to provide the resources, not just make it interesting to the person writing potentially bigger check, but you need to understand what that person is looking at, right? So if I'm a casual investor and I go to, and I'm going to use Kickstarter as an example because everybody knows that, right? If I go to Kickstarter and I see some widget, right, and I think to myself, wow, I'd like to have that. You know, this is a cool thing. I'm going to invest $20, $30, 100% on a gut feeling. You know, I like the way that looks. I think they used a funny pun. I'm going to invest $50. But if I'm investing $20,000, I'm not going to go on a funny pun. I'm going to look at a due diligence. I'm going to get my finance folks involved and look at the filings. I'm going to look at your trajectory. I'm going to look at all the Excel sheets you have, your GUS listing, everything, right? So none of that really is available when you're doing crowdfunding. except for your SEC filing, which is not very interesting to most people. So add that. Right now, when you're looking at the majority of crowdfunded listings, you don't really see much, and I think it's one of these things where if you build it, they will come, right? So even outside the Fast CTO score, if founders start adding more meat to their filings, I think it's going to invite sophisticated investors with bigger checks into the game.
Excellent, excellent. And your third tip?
Right. So what you want to do, I mean, the third tip is really kind of similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third tip is you want to really see what the industry that you're in, right? Because the different types of investors for those different industries look at different things, right? So the SEC filing, the Fast CTO score kind of brings it all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, for bigger investments, if you're a VC, let's say, you're going to bring your entire team. A lot of these funds have in-house diligence teams, right? They're going to have legal folks, they're going to have finance folks, they're going to have operational folks, they're going to have technical folks, and they're going to spend a lot of money sometimes and considerable amount of time, sometimes weeks or months, running a due diligence on a company. Right. So, when you're going crowdfunding, what Fast CTO score aims to fix is the technical part of it. Right. What the SEC filing does an okay job satisfying the finance people. For bigger checks, don't be surprised if bigger investors reach out to you and say, okay, give us some more Excel files because we need to see more. Also for bigger checks, don't be surprised if you're going to start seeing the legal team reach out to you and say, okay, let's sign an NDA, show us your contracts, right? We got to make sure that there's no liabilities here. And so likewise for the technology part of the due diligence, you're probably not even prepared for what they're going to ask. So what we aim to do is prepare you for this round and the next.
Yeah, outstanding, outstanding.
Thank
Igor, what intrigues you about crowdfunding?
Yeah, so I just it's a bit of a buzzword, right? But I just love the democratization of basically anything. When I see, I've been fairly privileged, right? Even though I'm an immigrant, I would say my family is upper middle class. I've gone to a good school. I've had good jobs, etc. So I try to do my best to give back. I work with a lot of high school teams, entrepreneurship programs. Fast CTO is a way for me to give back to the startup community that I feel helped me get to this point. And so crowdfunding for me is actually huge. So I found myself luckily in a position to be able to do angel investments as an accredited investor. Most people, 99% of people, more than 99% of people, are never going to find themselves in that position, unfortunately, right? Crowdfunding bridges that gap, but it still leaves a lot of people behind. Because what happens now is, yes, it allows non-accredited investors to invest, but on the founder side, it's still a huge struggle. Because if you're trying to start a serious company that needs a lot of capital, $88 investments, unless you have 1 million of them, just aren't going to cut it. And so you're going to need help from sophisticated investors. And so just the same way that I think Reg CF brought the people over to investing, now I want to fill the other half and get the founders the help that they need.
No.
Actually close the loop.
I want to circle back, if you will indulge me, to the CTO, Fast CTO. If Fast CTO is not making a profit, who is?
Great question. So Fast CTO has basically two sides of the business. We have the startup facing side. On the startup facing side, our mission is we do not profit from startups. I can go into the business model of how that works. But basically the short version is that instead of the typical 60% margin that pretty much every staffing company, agency, consultancy out there takes. So think if you're paying $100 an hour for someone, that person is making 40 or typically closer to $30. So what we do is we have a tiny margin just to cover our expenses, right? So we pay the CTOs what they're worth. So we go to these CTOs that are billing at $600, $700, $800 an hour for big name firms, and we basically tell them, look, instead of spending the next 2 years doing some boring implementation of some back office system for some billion-dollar corporation, come bring your skills and help some startups succeed. We'll pay you the same that big consultancy is paying you. We just won't mark it up, right? And so because we're de-risking the whole experience for them, and because we're giving them the opportunity to also give back a little bit, a lot of CTOs, we have a big network now, basically said, okay, let's do this, right? And I think it's actually really amazing. I thought we would get a lot of CTOs to make this jump, but I'm very pleasantly surprised. Basically, everybody that we're onboarding on the CTO side have been referrals and completely organic, just hearing about us and coming our way. So if you're hearing about this and you're a CTO, and we have a very high bar for what a CTO is, come talk to us. On the startup side, right, we're basically saying, look, the CTO is worth $800 an hour, but when they're billing $800 an hour, they're making significantly less. We're going to mark it up roughly 10%, just to cover our expenses of we have bills to pay as well. But other than that, it's completely at cost. And now we basically have all these startups that have access to really experienced CTOs that they would otherwise be kind of running headfirst toward an MVP with blindfolds on without, right? On the other side of the business, the side effect of doing this with startups is that we have a very big network of really experienced CTOs. And so we have a network of CTOs that has a lot of depth across a wide breadth, right? And so what we're able to do is approach VC funds and private equity firms and basically say, hey guys, do your technical due diligence through us. Because whereas you might have your in-house super competent technical team, they're typically generalists, right? And generalists are great for finance and legal, but they're not so great for technical, right? And so our value proposition to these big investors and private equity is we'll put together a team of really experienced CTOs that are experts in exactly the type of company that you're looking at. So this sort of specificity and depth, nobody can really match. And we're able to do that because of our big network. And so on that side of the business, our rates are a little bit closer to market rate. And so we're a little bit less altruistic, but we're fair. And we're able to make some money on that side and keep the startup facing side completely, basically nonprofit.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Igor, what is your superpower?
Oh boy. So there's a superpower I always wanted as a kid, which is to fly, but that's not it. I would say, if you ask anybody that knows me, the one thing that always surprises them is that I don't get anxious. I don't really get overwhelmed, and I tend to, I think I've yelled out of anger maybe twice in my life. And so for people that have heard me yell, they know how much it takes. And so, I think because I've had so many startups and because most of them have failed because startups fail, I think I've learned to be kind of even keeled. So if I do have a superpower, I think that's it.
That is a superpower. I congratulate you. Well, Igor, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Before you go, would you tell people how they can learn more about the Fast CTO Startup Score and how they can connect with you personally?
Beautiful, yeah. FastCTO.com. We're also on medium.com/FastCTO. You can also just Google Fast CTO. my email is Igor, Igor, at FastCTO. And my literal phone number is OK Ring Igor. So if you're a founder and you're like, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing with my developers, OK, ring Igor.
There you go. Excellent. Again, Igor, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and we wish you every success in making crowdfunding investing safer and better.
Thank you so much.
All righty, let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mark on the World show, the Social Impact Podcast. Please subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify.